bathroom tile floor layout in order to explain the falls. And so we're going to focus on this area just in here, which is based on 1 in 100. Now the roof that we're going to create, we want it to be a composite, but effectively it's just going to be the tile and maybe the tile glue that's underneath that. I don't have this modeled as a separate composite, and so we can go back in and make this one in a minute. We've got a larger one, concrete tile, but it's not really what we're after. So for the moment, we're just going to make this quite thin. At the moment, we'll just call that 15. And I'm not too worried about anything else in terms of the model, but we'll just get rid of the cover fills for a second, just so we're not worried about using the roof to create the tile pattern. At the moment, we're just using the fill to create the tile pattern. Then effectively what's happening is we want to create a triangulated section. Now in this case, we need to use a single plane, and I want to use the polygonal method. I'm going to tell it which way is up, and then draw the shape. Now I could do this in a couple of different ways. I could go to the center of the floor waist, or I can go to a side of the floor waist. In this case, I'll go to here. Now importantly, I'm not suggesting that I want these tiles all to be cut on this angle. Now because they're 600 by 600 tiles, some of them may need to be cut. Generally the last one, it's important to get that one to have the fall quite correct. If they're smaller tiles, they may not need to be cut at all, but what I'm really indicating here at the moment is the fall on the tiles. In order to be able to explain that fall to the tiler, but suggest that it's not necessarily being cut, what I'll do is change the outline to be a dashed line, and I can make that a very small dashed line if necessary. Now I'm going to repeat this process for all of these, and then once I've done that, then we can start to look at how to detail this properly. So I'll pick up the settings of this if I needed to. I'm using currently ArchiCAD layer, which is not at all good. I will change those once I'm done. So again, I'll start on the edge. This is defining the straight or the pitching plane. I'll then be clicking on the direction that is up. In this case, it's away from the floor waist. And then I'm drawing the shape. It doesn't matter which orientation I do this drawing. I can start from any side that I want. And we'll repeat this on all sides. I could mirror a copy, but in this case, I've deliberately set the floor waist closer to the door. And so we see it's not a mirrorable shape, so that each one is being done individually. And the final one. Great. So now we've got our roofs. I'm going to select these and I'll group them together, and that will just make them easier to find later. I need to find the appropriate appropriate layer for this, and so that's going to be floor surface in this case. That way, of course, I can choose to turn that off if necessary, but in this case, by creating them as dashed lines, we're fairly well communicating what we're trying to do. I can also move this symbol, so this is the interior elevation marker symbol, just so it's not on that fall. Now I also need to describe with words or with numbers what I'm trying to do. Now I could just do this individually, but I can do this in a couple of different ways. So I can use an arrow, so I can use a line, then change that to an arrow. Again, I don't want this to be on ArchiCAD layer, so this will be on a layer, something like overlay floor, or because I'm only at the moment focused on detail, this will be overlay detail bath. We can see that I'm in the wrong layer combination, so that's going to hide that straight away. But then I can go into my layer combination, overlay or plan detail. And I can turn that one on. Plan detail, overlay detail bath, update, and now I can see it. Now you can see that I've created here a fill around just to basically hide things that I don't want to see. Sorry, let's change that to 131. And so that's now hiding all of the unnecessary information. All right, so we've got our arrow, and I can make this a thicker pen if I feel that's useful. I also need to explain that that's the fall, so I can write fall. It's a bit big, we'll make that number 4. Fall, and then I need to describe the rate at which it's falling. I can do this in a couple of different ways. So I could use, there's an option called pitch. So if we go to our label tool, and I go to, let's go to here, auto text. I can click on this and then roof pitch, and we see that it's automated this. Again, I'll change that to 4. I'll change that to pen 1. Of course, we don't want the fall to be 32.5 degrees. That's not true, that's not good. But I don't really, I also don't want to use an angle. I want to use a ratio fall. Now, like I said, I want 1 in 100, but I need to understand what that means to be able to communicate that properly and to be able to fix up my roof eventually to explain that as well. What do I mean by 1 in 100? In this case, what I mean is for every 100 millimeters run, I want this floor to rise 1 millimeter. Now I'll turn true line weight off for a second to explain this. So that's the ratio of fall. Now if I measure that in terms of an angle, let's just flip that around. What that tells me is that if I'm trying to get a 1 in 100, so that's 100, that's 1. If I measure the angle, that's 0.57. So even 1 degree is steeper than we need it to be. So I could change all of these right now and call that 0.57, and that would give me my 1 in 100 fall. Now I don't really want to say 0.57, so I may end up changing that to be 1 in 100. All right, now we need to adjust these and understand what they're doing in section. So again, we've got these selected. We already have a section that's cutting through here. It's not quite cutting through the floor waist, so I'm not going to mess with this particular section. I'm going to draw a new one, and I'll make this one go directly through the floor waist just to make it really clear what I'm trying to do. Open with current section. So we can see here the build-up that we've already got. Here I've got my floor slab, which is built up with a variety of materials. So I have my tile underlay, my grading bed, my concrete slab. There's some things missing here, so it looks a bit strange because there's some beams that need to be here. So if I just change this to section, we can see that's going to show in more detail. Now this is the drain. This is the tile inset drain, or in this case it's just a stainless steel drain. So it's not very thick. I'm going to change this to be just 5 millimeters. And this is effectively going to sit pretty much flat on the concrete slab. It may come up just a couple mil, say 5 mil up, but it's basically going to be attached to the concrete slab, and all of the tiles are going to run down and connect into this one. So again, this is our this is our slab, and now we need to adjust the roofs, which was the tiles, so it's now working in with that. So I'll go back to my detail plan. I'll go into these roofs again. I can keep those all grouped. We see it's at the wrong height at the moment, so I want this to start, let's make it about 100 millimeters above ground level, just to make the most sense of this, and then we can adjust it from there. Let's open this up. Now we can see that these are our tiles. Just to make sense of this, I'm going to change the type, the building material, to be steel, just to make it very strong, just so it's very dominant on the screen, and then we'll make some changes to that after. I'm going to bring this down so it's aligned with the top of my tile, and we can see that we've deliberately made it the same thickness, so it's the thickness of the tile and the thickness of the glue. And we can see that they're running down, and this one's sort of running down close to the drain, but this one's not. We've got a few options here. Now this is reality. This is what really happens in a bathroom like this. So the question is, do we want the bathroom to be flush all the way around, flush with the level here, which means I'd need to change the angle of this floor? Or do I want to lower this section down so it's level, but that makes it much lower on this side? In this case, I want to have a nice relationship when I walk in the door from the concrete, which is exposed, to the tile. So I want that corner to be flush. So what I'm going to do is deliberately lower it down. Now again, I've probably made this a little bit low, so I'll bring this up another 5 millimeters, because effectively what needs to happen is I want to be able to bring this down, and I need the glue and the tile to both fit inside. So of course, the point is that the height of this drain is really determined by the tile and the glue, or the tile adhesive that it is fixed to. I can do this here as well. We can see this one's going to be slightly a little bit lower just because I'm increasing the angle, but that's basically correct. And that's basically representing what would actually be happening with the tile. So what we'll note is often when we do an interior elevation, we're just creating a square or a rectangular box. But in reality, what we'll see happen here is the toilet won't necessarily be sitting on a flat floor. And that's common. What's going to be happening is that we'll need to build up a bedding underneath the toilet, and of course a bath is even bigger, something like that. We need to build it up so that it is again sitting flat, because the floor isn't flat and we actually don't want the floor to be flat. So we don't always go to this level of detail, and a lot of people don't. But if we're trying to really understand how the tile works, if we're going to really understand how the falls work in the bathroom, we can actually model this in ArchiCAD, and this is the best way to do it. So let's go back to the bathroom plan again, and now we'll rotate this section, or we'll draw a new section and show it in the other direction. So in this case, let's just rotate it around this floor waist. We can see that we're cutting through in the other directions now, and I'll just move that slightly just so we're centered, and we'll open this one up. So we can see this is the other two tile floors. So again, I don't want to lower it because I have banding here that I want this to relate to. So I want to bring this down. In this case, I'm going to lower it down from here so that it's flush there. Lower it down here so it's flush. And now just to make sense of this, we'll go back to the bathroom plan, select all of these roofs, select the drain, show selection in 3D. And I'll change the view to get rid of that. So we can see what's happening. So that's the fall that we've created on the bathroom floor going to the floor waste. Now to finish this off so it works perfectly, we now need to change the materiality of the composite. So if I go back to my section, we'll select this section here. We can see that it's currently big and black and it's not very nice. It's not a true representation of what the tile should be. This one looks really nice, but it's not actually following the floor fall. So we're going to start with this composite. Just for reference, this one's called AED, Floor Slab Wet Area Tiled, and we'll take that into our composites. Floor slab wet area tiled. We're going to duplicate this, so we'll go new, duplicate, and I'll change this to floor tiles and glue. We're then going to delete all of the other skins that we no longer need. So I'll remove it from the bottom, remove skin, remove skin, remove skin, remove skin. So we're just left with the tile and the glue. What do we want to use it for? In this case, we could use it for a slab maybe, and definitely for the roof. We'll press OK. We can then select all of our roofs. We'll make sure that it's currently grouped. We'll go into the settings. We'll change it to the other type of composite, floor, tiles, and glue. I'm not going to change any other settings. I'm just going to leave it like it is. And now we're going to magic wand. Now we're going to solid element operate to cut away these other elements that we don't want. So I'll select the floor waste. I'll select the tiles. I'll go into my design, solid element operation. These are my operators, and this floor is my target. And I want to choose subtraction with upwards extrusion and execute. And we can see that that's cut the floor away. And what we can see, which is nice, is we've got a flat edge all the way around the side, which means that as we look at the wall or the wall tiles, they all start from the same point. In this case, I'm using the same banding tile on the floor and 2 tiles up. So it's a skirting tile and a banding tile, which is a black subway tile. So I want those to read together. So it's really important in this case that the floor fall is inconsistent. So in this case, if I go back to my bathroom plan, if I copy this again, let's go move, mirror a copy. This floor is not 1 in 100. It's minimum 1 in 100. So I could write something like greater than 1 in 100 if I was trying to specify to the tiler what they needed to do. Or I could be more detailed. So if I go back to this one again, in this case I flipped it, so it's not going to make a lot of sense. So if I click on the roof, if I change this instead of to be a text, if I make this auto text and go back to roof or pitch, we can see that it's 3 degrees. And if I want to run that out, I can go 3.07 and draw in that angle. I'll move this away a bit just so I can see it. And then if I wanted to measure what that was, so we're doing it the other way around, of course, I'd say 1. So I'd go down 1. And then to work out my 1 in watt, I'd measure back this way, and we'd see that I'd run into it at 19. And so I've now made this floor 1 in 19. So I've made it much, much greater fall, and that's based on the fact of that I'm falling the tiles, and I'm also having the grate or the drain offset. So we see it's much closer to this side than that side. Now that's acceptable. I can have the floor that steep. Now I also don't need to. And so what we might do is say, well, I only needed this floor. This is the biggest fall. I only needed this one to be 1 in 100. And therefore, if this is too big, then I can just build up the grading bed under all of these to start with this one at 1 in 100, and then to make this one whatever it needs to be to match. So we've got those options, and we can start to think those through in more detail, and we can work it out in terms of BIM and understand what we're trying to do. And of course, we can use this to design the bathroom as well as just detailing it, explaining it to the builder, or explaining it specifically, in this case, to the tiler.